Right, welcome everybody to Broadland District Council's Cabinet. The observant amongst you will notice that I am not Sue. I have stepped in last minute as Sue was unable to attend. Just to notify you all, this is a public meeting and it's being live streamed on Council's YouTube channel. So the first thing is declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? I have to declare myself item 11 as a director of Broadland Living. I will be not voting on that item and I won't be presenting it either. Any other declarations of interest? No? Okay, thank you. Apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies?
Yes, Jeremy. We have apologies from Councillor Booth and Councillor Holland.
Thank you. Minutes of Cabinet meeting held on the 16th of January. Has everyone read them? I take it they're all agreed?
Agreed.
Yeah. Thank you. Public speaking. Do we have any public speaking? Thank you. Okay, so that takes us over to overview and scrutiny. Nick, would you like to present?
Thank you. The meeting held last week threw up a couple of surprises in that I usually like to summarise, particularly when it's a tied vote and it's my casting vote, usually like to summarise some of the points that the opposition may have made, and being opposition as in those voted against. I don't mean in a political sense, but those who voted against might have wanted to make on particular points. But although there was a tied vote on the revenue budget and council tax item 7, no reasons were given for that, so I cannot express the reasons why they voted against. The point 8, capital strategy, capital programme, also went to a tied vote. I think some of the reasons given for that were also similarly linked to the points made under item 10 of the strategic plan. There were comments about whether it was ambitious enough in some respects, and there were questions about individual elements of funding, which I thought were clarified to some extent, but obviously some members have still got questions to ask about those elements. The Treasury Management Strategy statement went through unanimously and I think was well received. The pre-application fees, I think everybody welcomes the fact that planning will be able to cover its costs and pay for everything that it needs to do without turning a profit, and we also given an explanation of what happens if accidentally some profit should happen but it shouldn't. And the local authority housing fund rounds, I think we're very pleased to see that the council is being extremely proactive. Members right across the chamber were very welcoming of this. I think it's a really good thing that is happening, that we are clearly taking advantage, and I don't mean taking advantage as in doing something we shouldn't, but taking advantage of an opportunity which some of the councils don't seem to be alive to, and this gives us a real opportunity to get ahead of the game with some funding, get buying properties if we can possibly can, and hopefully saving the council some money. So that's my rather brief summary. I hope that's okay.
Thank you very much. I was there as well and I agree that's a fair summary of the meeting. Next is representations from non-cabinet members. So this is your opportunity to speak. You will have 3 minutes each, up to 15 in total. So I can see a few of you here. Do you wish to speak? No? Okay, thank you. So this brings us on to item 7, which is the revenue budget and council tax. Now, Debbie, I believe, is stepping in for Rodney, so I will hand over to Debbie to speak.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, unfortunately, Rodney can't be here tonight. So on the agenda tonight are 3 papers which together form the budget papers for 24-25. That's the revenue budget paper, the capital budget and the Treasury Management Strategy. And the first report is the revenue budget proposals for 24-25. The report takes you through various steps that are involved in setting the budget, from working out the cost of running our services, then adding on the other types of income and expenditure, then looking at the general government funding, which has increased by 466,000 since last year, and then works out the income from business rate papers. That brings that all together and in doing so identifies the income that needs to be collected from our council taxpayers. Overall, a balanced budget is being proposed with no need to draw on general reserves. The report, though, is recommending or proposing a £5 increase in council tax, which will increase the Broadland council tax for a Band D property from £129.91 this year to £134.91 for 24-25. That equates to a 3.85% increase. There are some other key points to note in the report, which are the majority of responses to the budget consultation which we carried out indicated support for a rise in the level of council tax. Section 6 of the report sets out the proposed increase in fees and charges, which in general are to rise in line with the September 23 RPI figure of 8.9% as set out in our fees and charges policy. Section 11 also sets out proposals for the special expenses charge that are specifically for maintaining the street lights in Great Witchingham and Helsden. This year, following a review of these, it's proposed that we actually reduce the special expenses charge by £6. I also need to draw you to the attention the advice that Rodney as the Section 151 officer has provided, which is set out in Section 12 on page 31 on the budget. And that in his opinion, the budget is robust and the level of reserves are adequate. Finally, I just need to make you aware that the final local government settlement figure has now been published last week. There was no change to the overall grant figures included in this report. There was a movement because there was a 101,777 increase in services grant, but that was offset by an equivalent reduction in the funding guarantee grant. So the recommendation in the report 1.1 no longer needs to include a delegation for any changes resulting from the final settlement because we've now received that. Happy to take questions from anyone. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Debbie. I will hand over to Steve now to lead the Cabinet on this.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, thank you, Debbie. There's extensive work on this budget that's taken place, and I'd just like to thank the 151 officer and all the other officers that have been involved in this. It was particularly challenging this year, as you know from our October Cabinet meeting, we did point to the need to look at the capital situation, as at that point all reserves were being projected to were projected as needed to cover the extensive capital programme set by the previous administration. This has caused us quite a fault line in projecting forward on revenue as well, because if you've used up all your reserves, you've got very little to play with in terms of your revenue account if you are encountering severe pressures. This year we've encountered severe pressures, some of which were predicted, I think, from last year. We look at the Treasury reports from a year ago in terms of where inflation was and going, and I think that the last 2 years on the counter tax freeze has actually meant that we're $500,000 down on revenue, so that clearly will compound the issue for sure. We did, when we looked at this as a snapshot on the medium-term financial plan, at that point we was looking at a £1 million deficit on revenue. So you can see from page 27, and particularly the graph there that Debbie's also made reference to, I think, in her report as well. We've really brought that down with a lot of work around efficiency and an approach to revenue which is financially prudently correct for the council. And you can see moving forward to next year and the year after, we've got a very narrow gap now reduced down to. However, still work has got to be done. We'll come to capital reports in a moment, and that'll be also spoken to by the officers. So I have more to say on that at that point, but they are interlinked. So thank you to the officers and for all the work we've put into producing a balanced budget.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Yes.
Thank you, Chair. I'll do this in two bits. Firstly, just a question about the special expenses for the two parishes, because it's not very often that residents get something back off of the council. And we've got two parishes here, Great Witchingham and Helsden, where the formula has been reworked and their special expenses for street lighting is reducing by £6. Can I just ask some narrative about how that's come about? Is it a case that Broadland has been charging Helsden and Great Witchingham too much in the past, or was there some other directive that's come through that has enabled that to happen?
I think what's happened is over the past we've created a reserve because obviously we've tried to smooth out the fluctuations in street lights because it includes things like electricity and the running costs, and obviously they go up and down, as everybody knows electricity has. So it's smoothed out, and they've looked at the balance in the reserve and what they believe to be the running costs for the forthcoming year, and that therefore means that with the price of electricity dropping and things like that, they can make a small reduction.
Thank you. So even taking into account the increased cost of electricity, which everybody has felt, we're still in a position where these two parishes will see a reduction in their special expenses because we've racked up too much money in that reserve over the past, which kind of indicates maybe we've charged them a little bit too much, but you know, that's where we are.
George?
Thank you. On the streetlights, it's probably worth saying that Broadland have undertaken a significant upgrade and refurbishment of those streetlights over the last 18 months. So there's a capital outlay to replace all the bulbs for LED, so I can sit here comfortably and say that all of those bulbs are LED bulbs now, as well as a management system which reduces the operating cost of those street furnitures as we go forwards. So the cost is reduced because of the investment that Broadland has made, helping out the residents.
Thank you very much indeed for that. Going on to my second area, which is just about the medium-term financial strategy. And I think really comparing now to the position presented in October, we're really quite transformed. And I think that's a real tribute to the officers and to the portfolio holder. When we're looking at, back in October, a projected gap of £1 million, that has now reduced by 80% over that time. Through the work of the team, I think that shows what a good place Broadland is in as far as delivering the budget is concerned. And we're now at the point where the gap, I think doing my sums, it's less than 2% of our total revenue requirement is now represented by the gap if you do the sums of around 200,000 divided by 15 million, which I think is in a very strong position. And I think other councils will be quite envious, actually, both in Norfolk and elsewhere, of the progress that Broadland has made in recent months in reducing that gap. I accept that's more of a comment than a question, but I think that really needs to be amplified.
Thank you, Dan. Any other questions or comments? Yes, Councillor Riley.
Yeah, just in terms of the question that's been asked around the street lighting, this was one that I reviewed. We could have, in line with other provisions, increased that by inflation. However, I did ask for a review on this, and the reason for that is that when you look over the time period, and there has been investment gone in, as George has said. However, what I was eager to do was to ensure that we thoroughly review that, because we want to look over the next 2, 3, 4 years, as we should do in terms of leadership on these accounts, because it's just not now, it's about the future as well. And in terms of the future, I could see that we'd actually have a fund that was not only in excess of what is required now, but would be increasing. So the responsible thing to do for Helsden residents and for Great Witchingham was to have a reduction. I mean, net effect of that, the council tax, is effectively a £1 reduction. So it's great news for those residents. And I think it's also due to proper corporate financial approach with the elected member, myself, and then the cabinet working with the officers in regards to this. Because at the end of the day, officers are not in a decision-making role, it's the councillors that are, and we've made exactly the right decision on this one.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. I think we're done. Oh, no, we're not done.
I'm just going to have one more, and that's just to highlight the revenue contribution to the capital programme, which I think is very important. And much as nobody likes putting up council tax, and the proposal is for the £5 increase in council tax, is how important that actually that funding through to the capital programme is taking place, because it's through that capital programme that we will be delivering most of our transformation. So in many ways, yes, it is a shame that council tax is increasing, but in many respects the projects that he's funding is a spend to save in the future and will save Broadland residents money further down the line. So I'm happy to endorse that increase.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Yeah, I just want to associate myself with the comments about all the work that's gone into this. It has been absolutely tireless. So well done to everybody who has been involved. And as Dan said, nobody wants to put up council tax, least of all me. But can you imagine the state of the budget if we hadn't for 3 years in a row, especially with the cost increases? It's been absolute madness. So it has to be done. And I'm very confident that this is the right thing to do. And we have the recommendations before us here.
Yeah, move, Chair. Seconded.
Yeah. Are you all in favour? Okay, thank you. Next item is the capital strategy and capital programme. So again, same as before, Debbie is stepping in for Rodney. So over to you, Debbie.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the second of the 3 reports. This report here details out the Council's capital strategy and the capital budgets for the period 24-25 right through to 28-29. Overall, the capital programmes totals £21 million. The programme includes £5 million for investment in Broadland Growth Limited to enable the company to deliver housing development and to generate an investment return to the Council. Also included other council assets, repairs and maintenance, disabled facilities grants and refurbishment of the waste depot. Appendix B on page 3056 provides a full scheme by scheme breakdown. This expenditure will be funded from reserves, grants and capital grants and capital receipts with no need for the council to borrow. You'll note from the funding analysis in paragraph 9.4, which is on page 46, that this programme will use £4,270,000 of general revenue reserves. As such, Rodney, as a Section 151's advice, which is detailed on page 55, is that there is a need to review the medium-term capital programme during this forthcoming financial year in order to reduce the potential draw on the general revenue reserves. Cabinet is fully aware of that need and as stated in paragraph 3.2 on page 42, Cabinet's committed to continually reviewing this programme during the forthcoming financial year and moving forwards to ensure that the Council obtains value for money from every penny that it spends on the capital programme and that it's affordable going forward. I'm happy to take any questions anybody may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie. I'll hand straight over to Steve from the Cabinet.
Yeah, thank you. The capital programme and the parts report that Debbie's just amplified there, but our need to review the capital programme is an absolute must for this council. If we leave things as they are, then there is a substantial problem that will open up. This does come back to a February report in the Cabinet where a decision was made to use 5.5 million of general reserves to cover the capital imbalance on the programme. So literally all funds, all reserves, including the general reserve, it was endorsed at that Cabinet to fund the capital programme from those funds. That was clearly an issue because if you commit all your reserves, especially your general reserves, to a capital programme, then that can only mean one or two things. One, you've not kept your eye on the capital that you're agreeing to spend, or two, you haven't put the provision in to cover it. So there is clearly an issue that's going to open up for us. So I'm pleased to say that in this report, we've already made some inroads into that. We've already eliminated 3 reserves to contribute towards that problem, which is repurposed 1.1 million. Plus also, you'll see in the report as well, we have also allocated from revenue 250,000 to go towards the capital programme. That's the first time that Broadland's done that, and the key issue here is when you've got to spend capital, we're not a profit business here, so we can't generate income in that way. Where does the money come from? And if you just take it from the reserves you've got, eventually you will run out. So you have to look at where you can actually generate some money from. So not only have we got a balanced revenue budget, this is what I meant by they're both linked. In that revenue budget, we've also got an allocation of 250 towards the capital programme. Now we intend, moving forward, to also hopefully produce another 250 next year and the year after, all adding towards that programme, if we can afford it. first principle is to balance your budget. If we can afford it or more, we will do so. But that's prudency in terms of from your general reserve, from your revenue, producing some money towards capital. Otherwise, you'll get to a point where you run out. You've got another way of getting capital. We've of course also got our, which we'll come on to later on, another issue around LHF funding. But part of our capital projects that we've got in here, you'll see we're setting aside 5 million towards Broadland growth, and hopefully we may be able to generate some capital out of that or some other kind of income. So within the capital programme, one, fiscally and in a structural way deal with the problem, and then two, look to see how you can generate money, capital and from revenue to deal with that problem. And it is a problem we've inherited, but we have got the means and the corporate sort of knowledge working with the officers to deal with this, and this capital programme begins to set that road out for us. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. Are there any comments or questions from Cabinet? Mr. Rover. Councillor Rover.
Thank you, Councillor Hartley. I'm pleased to endorse this paper because I think it puts us in a much stronger position to deliver the capital programme than certainly we were in October. So I think people can be confident that the programme in front of you will be delivered. I think a lot of progress has been made in relation to the funding and reserves, and it's clear that the paper that was presented to us in October showed that the budget passed in February was not sustainable as far as the capital programme was concerned, and that the previous political leadership of the council had set us on a course to literally empty the general reserve, which was quite a scary situation, I think, for this council, and it should have been for residents. We're not there now. A lot of work has been done, and as I say, I think we're in a much stronger position to deliver the capital programme. Just moving on to one specific reserve, because it did raise comment in overview and scrutiny, and that is about the Broadland Growth Reserve, which still stands at 5 million, and there's no specific project allocated for that yet. And I think that is for an extremely good reason, in that often opportunities come round with other sources of funding, and that's what makes them attractive. And that is, this council has already had a very recent example of that, where it took advantage of government funding to deliver an excellent project within Broadland. We would hope that similar projects will come along in the future, and certainly the Broadland Growth Reserve is there to support the aims of this council and to help us to deliver savings in the future. So nobody should read anything into the fact that no specific project is identified at this time. We are on the lookout all of the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Rover. And we have Jan this time.
Thank you, Councillor Hartley. I'd just like to reiterate certainly my support for the programme, and just to point out that we've made mention of the fact that we're looking at embedding our carbon reduction measures across the council and our services and across Broadland as a district. We're continue to deliver our Warm Homes programme as the lead local authority across Norfolk. But we're not sure about what future grants might be coming forward, but we're clearly planning to be in a position to be able to take advantage of anything that may well come forward. But so that future expenditure isn't currently shown in the capital programme, in terms of the additional funding that we would be looking to attract. But clearly that we'd be planning to be able to be in a position to be able to take advantage of that if it came forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. Any other questions or comments? No? Okay. Well, I think we have the recommendations in front of us. Second. Happy? Lovely. Thank you very much. Number 9, sorry. Item number 9 now, which is the Treasury Management Strategy Statement. We're going to Georgina Pell for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This report provides detail of the Council's statutory requirement to set a Treasury strategy for the forthcoming financial year. there have been no significant changes to the strategy since last year. The strategy is built on the three principles of security, liquidity and yield, the most important of which is security of investment. The report includes the policy statement, annual investment strategy, counterparty risk issues, the scheme of delegation, prudential indicators and notes on interest rates from our Treasury advisors. I'm happy to now take any questions anyone may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Georgina. Any questions, comments?
I think it's a
Surprise,
mark of an
surprise.
excellent report that there's no questions, I think, and I don't think there was any overview and scrutiny either.
Right, well, I'll move straight to recommendation. Yeah. All in favour? Splendid. Thank you very much. Item 10, the council plan and the delivery plan 24 to 20, what does it say, 26? Sorry, my eyes are not great. Right, so I'm heading to Sinead for this. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you, Chair. So the report you have in front of you sets out the 4-year council plan for Broadland District Council alongside the 2-year delivery plan leading to 2026. So just to give you a brief overview, the council plan sets out the overarching vision and priorities for the district and the organisation for the coming 4 years, and these are outlined on page 5 of the council plan or 98 of your papers. So the priorities for 2024 to 2028 are providing the right homes in the right places, a cleaner, greener Broadland, sustainable, resilient local economy, and empowering communities and individuals. It also outlines how we work in order to achieve the best outcomes for our residents and businesses, and this is captured in a priority around being a modern, caring council safeguarding our future. An appendix to the council plan is the delivery plan, and this very much is a supporting document, and that details the projects and activities we will deliver in the first 2 years of the council plan, and it also outlines the key performance indicators we'll use to monitor our progress and performance. So just onto the recommendations, and this is for Cabinet to recommend to Council to approve the adoption of the Council Plan 2024 to 28 and the associated delivery plan. So I'll pause there for any questions, and we do have a range of other officers in the room for any detailed questions on services.
Thank you very much, Sinead. Now, this would have been the item Sue would have spoken on, so I'm not going to do a Sue impersonation. I will just open to... that would be terrible. I'll open to any other... Wasn't that funny? Any questions or comments? Councillor Roper.
Thank you, Chair. Well, as Sue's co-councillor for Speaks Within Safe Face, I'm quite good at doing a Sue impression because we've worked together for such a long time. It's not questions from me, it's comment. Won't surprise you to know. I'll be proposing this plan and the delivery plan to Cabinet to be forwarded on to Council. I think what we have here is an ambitious programme, and I think it is absolutely right that we've added the objective around providing the right homes in the right places, because I think that absolutely chimes with the difficulties which people are facing within our communities. So it is a plan that moves with the times. I think when you're talking about the delivery plan, what we're looking at here is something which is looking forwards. And a comment has been made in the past that perhaps these plans should almost look like a prospectus for Broadland. And perhaps at times they're too backwards looking about what we've delivered in the past and what we've achieved in the past. What we've got here is a plan which reflects progress from the past, but bakes that in as business as usual, because it's what we do. And again, if you look at the plan which Council adopted 4 years ago, you had one which was very much around the collaboration project. I think what we see now is that the collaboration is business as usual. It is shown in how we are delivering on a day-to-day basis with the council. So what we can now focus on is what we're delivering for communities, not necessarily how we're dealing with it in the back office, because that is baked in. I think from the earlier papers that we had around the budget, and again, I use some quite big words there about a transformed position compared to October. I think residents can have a lot of confidence that this remains a council which is driving to achieve value for money and results, because actions speak louder than words on that, and we demonstrated that in the progress that we've made on the budget since October. And reflecting in the values of a modern, caring council, that is what we are aspiring to be and will be as Broadland. And again, within the delivery plan, what you see there is many objectives, the vast majority of which are about transforming our services and making them more efficient for residents. So I think what we have here is an ambitious plan. There are still things that can be added to it. The delivery plan is for 2 years. We will have another one in 2 years' time in which we can make even more progress. But I think these are very much the right lines for the council to be going on.
Thank you, Councillor Roper. Councillor Riley.
Yeah, as Councillor Roper's already indicated, at least on this point, the delivery plan is, what is it? Well, it's a delivery plan, and it also is interrelated. And I just want to make a comment about Corinne, actually, because at the ONS, I thought that Corinne put it really well when she said, on clarification to some members, the delivery plan is not about a forward, it's about the plan. Forward is just political direction, really. The plan encompasses all areas of the council, and this is why you need your revenue account and your capital account entwined, because delivery plan, you can't work unless you've got those things working as well. Then we've got our objectives around what we want to do in terms of supporting residents and improving services where we can is quite important. So pretty quickly in the council, we already pulled in the community grant fund, which, as you know, Chair, because you chair that as well, was oversubscribed. So we'd said for a very long time, in opposition actually, that we believed that would be the case and there was a need for it. And it being oversubscribed proved that point. Of course, Members' Ward Grant Fund is there if people need it in their district. They may not, but it's there if they need it. So it's all interlinked. The delivery plan is setting out a pathway. We'll keep being amended as we go, as we develop things. So it's not something that's set in concrete, but it is the direction forward and the way that we would be delivering on our objectives and our manifesto commitments to the public. So commend the plan and accordingly, well, I think Dan's already moved it, seconded it, whatever. Natasha.
Thank you. Just to agree with all of those comments, really, I think this is a great plan. We're really stamping our mark on it and making it very clear that we are here to serve our community. I have a personal dislike for referring to our residents as customers. They don't have a choice where they shop. We are here to serve them, and I think it's a great plan. Any other comments? Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks very much, Chair. I mean, I'd like to also clearly endorse the plan. It is building on what we have committed to, which is recognising that we're in a climate and biodiversity emergency. And in that respect, we've looked at refreshing the environmental strategy and including within that our endeavours to reduce carbon emissions clearly across the council, but across the district, and enhance our environment. We mentioned before when I was talking about the revenue and capital programme around the need to be prepared and ready to take advantage of funding when it comes along. But I think we've been able to do that. But it's also about more than just money. It's around how we approach and how we explain a way forward for ourselves and our residents in terms of, and within that environmental strategy, we talk about driving behaviour change on a number of areas, waste and recycling being one of them. And that's clearly an area where we would endeavour to improve on what we're already achieving, which has been quite significant. But also supporting businesses and communities, and that's in our strategy as well, to help them to reduce their carbon emissions, improve their energy efficiency, and costs, which are all co-benefits of this plan. I think being proactive in terms of biodiversity and net gain has now come in, but I think it's about biodiversity gain, and not just net gain, and it's been looking at how we can improve that. And again, that's within that environmental strategy. And also working with our partners, which is again there within the strategy. So recognising the partners we're working with, in particular with the Norfolk Climate Change Partnership on net zero communities and the pilot programme that we're involved in with them. So I'm very happy to be able to endorse this plan and delivery strategy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. I believe you already moved it, didn't you? You did, yes, and you seconded it. So recommendation in front of you, all in agreement? Thank you very much. This takes us to item 11, which is the development management pre-application charges. So we have Stuart to present on this, and I believe there is a little update, isn't there? I'll hand over to you.
Thank you, Chair. As you say, there is an update which I will come to during the presentation. The report relates to the review of the pre-application charges which were introduced in 2021. It's considered that now is appropriate to review those charges, as principally in relation to, you will be aware that the national planning fees have recently been updated, and that has proposed or has introduced significant increases for majors of 35% and 25% for all other application types. Also, in the context of the Council's commercialisation strategy and fees and charges strategy, it is considered appropriate to revisit the charges we have for pre-application. Members will be aware that the pre-application service is discretionary, but it's nationally recognised that the provision of such a service is valued to customers and can result in significant savings for them down the line in terms of advice they've received prior to submitting that planning application. The review has also considered the increasing complexity of the advice that we give to customers. As members will be aware, in terms of recently nutrient neutrality, there is also the Green Infrastructure Recreation Avoidance Mitigation Strategy, which has recently come into place, and as of Monday for major applications and in April for minor applications, there is biodiversity net gain, which increases the complexity of the advice we give. The charging structure has considered the previous time monitoring that we've undertaken, together with a comparison of what the percentage of the subsequent planning application fee would be, and also a comparison to our neighbouring authorities in proposing the charges that are before you today. The current fee structure seeks to group the inquiries into a range of similar topic sizes, or inquiries that raise similar issues relating to planning policy and also the planning considerations. It's also considered that that grouping gives us flexibility and simplicity in operation, and for those reasons it's proposed to retain the existing categories. Just in terms of the update I wish to give members, we did look at the current numbers of inquiries that we receive, and the figures are correct in terms of the actual numbers that we receive. However, in relation to one category, which is the general inquiries category, I have included in that quite a range of inquiries which we currently provide free advice on, and that relates to works such as to listed buildings, where the subsequent planning applications don't attract a fee. Likewise with advice to applicants about tree works, where again those applications subsequently don't attract a fee, together with issues such as compliance with conditions, follow-up inquiries and the notifications that we receive under permitted development rights. Having reviewed the last few years of inquiries that we receive, in terms of the numbers that would in this proposal attract a fee, then that equates to about 10% of the numbers I proposed. So in that context, in relation to that particular category, it does amend the predicted income from those, and that will result then in a revision to the incomes for those sections, which will be around about £86,000. Members will be aware that within the report we had also estimated that the range of income would be between 80 and 100,000. It's also been suggested, as would be normal practice, the figures that we've used has applied to 25 and 35% to the current charges that we offer. Generally on an annual basis, what we increase by inflation, we do look to round that to the nearest £5. And it's proposed that, again, for simplicity in terms of those, that the figures are amended to round those in the report to the nearest 5. So Appendix 4A, which is the top table, uses the charges that were originally proposed together with the amended figures for the general inquiries, and the table in 4B would be the same figures but rounded to the nearest £5. So just to conclude, the proposal is to retain the current high-level free advice that we offer by phone or in the office. Also, as just outlined, to retain the current free advice in relation to that range of inquiries, listed buildings, etc. That there would still be a free follow-up inquiry, There will be still the reduced rates for certain organisations, but it is proposed to introduce charges for the categories which we previously offered for free. It's also proposed in relation to the major inquiries that we put a cap at 200 houses on those, because it's considered that above that they start to become a strategic proposal which has much more complex involvement, and in relation to those it's proposed that we either offer a bespoke fee for those or enter a planning performance agreement. That's recommendations to officers.
Thank you very much. Lots of detail in that report. I'll go straight to any cabinet members who have questions or comments.
Just to move the recommendation, Chair.
I think I saw a hand waving over there. Was it not a hand? It wasn't. Okay, it was my imagination. So moved and seconded by everybody. Lovely, thank you. So we have recommendations. Are you all in favour? Lovely, thank you. Item 12. I'm going to have to sit this one out due to being a director of Broadland Living. So, and Jamie, you wanted to clear something as well?
Chair, thank you. Yeah, just whilst Mike and Victoria settle themselves, despite not being part of the decision-making processes to aid transparency, it would also be useful to declare my conflict of interest as a Broadland Living Limited Director.
Thank you, Jamie. So I shall hand over to Councillor Riley to lead this.
Thank you. Right, so I am the other portfolio holder involved in this process, as you see from the report. Who is actually, which officer is going to? Mike, thank you. In substitution for Jamie, please fire away.
Thank you, Councillor Riley. So this is we've been here before with a local authority housing fund. Following the council agreement in October 2023, we purchased 6 properties for Afghan resettlement and 3 properties for temporary accommodation. That work is progressing well, and we're on track to meet the 29th of March completion date. We've got a good offer for temporary accommodation, and we've had Harvard Court purchase and 3 homes, which is described above. We still need additional temporary accommodation, and as our projected homelessness curve is still on track for that, so we're looking at single people accommodation to minimise cost of spot purchase. So we're preempting here a opportunity again for round 3 for the local authority housing fund. So we put an expression of interest. We're just waiting to hear. So we're just coming to cabinet early, looking at the timescales that we need to move. So we're preempting the move tonight. We've submitted the expression of interest with consultation with cabinet, and we're just waiting to see that to see whether that reports back. We'll be looking to purchase 2 additional properties for HMOs using that fund and using the underspend from existing local authority housing budget, but also contribution from the reserves for Broadland Growth Limited. Really just to ensure that we maintain that good value for money and good sense of good quality accommodation, but most importantly, which is what this boils down to, is good quality accommodation for our residents to ensure that they are in the right accommodation to help them move on in the future. So you can see the recommendations there, and I'm happy to answer any questions. And we've got Victoria here, who actually knows what she's talking about. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, just for any questions, just made some comments on the report. This very much is in line with the template that we've already set out and the work that we did on the previous LH. So we actually have got the model, the framework to progress on. So it's it's now proved to be quite a simple case to put forward because we've already done all that hard work on that. I think the significant issue here is that when you turn to page 162, you can just see how much the demand for temporary accommodation has risen, and therefore the burden to the council in terms of particularly bed and breakfast costs. I note that we're actually asking for a capital investment here and we'll be using Broadland Growth as an opportunity, the fund from Broadland Growth, that's part of the recommendation. That figure is 235,000 to purchasing 2 properties. So in terms of capital from ourselves, we're also saving approximately 180,000 in terms of B&B costs. So the return there, if you like, due to savings, is about 80% of that capital. So that's a good use of Broadland growth money, to say the least, and also relieves the burden on the revenue account, which this comes out of in terms of supporting the B&B accommodation. So it's absolutely first-class business that we've supported and our model with the officers. We do appreciate the officers' support and the work they've put in on this. So there, those are my comments on the report, Mike, just to supplement your own. So anyone else, Dan?
Yeah, Mike, his comments is not questions, so best easy to endorse what the portfolio holder has said. We spoke earlier on about looking for opportunities and taking opportunities, and this is an excellent one which presents a win-win for us, both in terms of delivering for people in need and ultimately saving the council money. What is not to like is a tremendous opportunity, and we need to press forward with it.
We don't do chairwomanship. The chair is sufficient. Thank you very much. Very frustrating to not be able to have spoken on that, but I shall leave it at that. This takes us to our final item number, which is item 13, the forward plan. This is just to note. We're all happy to note the forward plan?
Absolutely.
That's it then. That's the end. James, could you switch